So, will this latest effort to confront insurgents in Iraq work? Joining us to discuss this is Brian Katulis. He co-authored a report on Iraq's strategy for the Democrats in the US and is a former White House aide under President Clinton. Brian Katulis, this operation sounds like they're on the right tracks, doesn't it?
Because I'm concerned that we never had enough troops in Iraq to help secure it. The top commander in Iraq recently reported that only about 40% of Baghdad is under control, and we're into the 5th month of this surge, and we're sending more now to the northeastern province of Diyala. And I'm afraid that we've never had enough troops to actually achieve the strategic aim of stabilizing that part of the country. And it doesn't even, mention those questions of whether Iraq's security forces can actually hold that third element of the strategy.
You don't think 10,000 troops involved in this operation is adequate? I mean, it sounds like a pretty solid number, and they've also got cover from the air as well.
Well, you just look at today's events, and I'm concerned that if we move to one place and follow the insurgents to the terrorist groups there, then our flank is exposed in parts of Baghdad, that we've never had sufficient troops. And this doesn't even mention the operation the British forces and U.S. forces are involved in Maysan province in the south. So there are many different clashes. Much of the clashes are actually intra-Iraqi clashes, and it's not clear to me that this tactic, which we've tried before, will succeed without sufficient troops on the ground.
I can just take a couple of the points you've made there. First of all, I mean, Baquba in Diyala province, frankly, has seen some of the worst violence this year, so they're quite right to focus on it.
Absolutely, but it seems like we're playing this game of whack-a-mole. We're hitting them where they are, and then they go to a different part of the country. Similar dynamic, I think, happening in Mosul, a large city in the northern part of Iraq. And it has its periods of stability, and then when we move troops out of there, it actually declines. And it's this fundamental question of, are there enough security forces, Iraqi, U.S., and coalition forces, to actually stabilize the country? And then the bigger question is whether Iraqis actually agree themselves, Iraq's political leaders, with some of these operations. You see a lot of complaints about what's going on in Anbar and Maysan province.
But in this operation, U.S. commanders have said quite explicitly their aim is to round up the insurgents. They said bring them to justice, eliminate them to ensure that they are not displaced to somewhere else in Iraq. They're saying they really want to get to grips with them this time.
This is what was said in 2004 about Fallujah, and that we were encircling the city of Fallujah in Anbar province, and that we weren't going to let them escape. And the nature of this conflict is such that it's very difficult, particularly with foreign forces who don't speak the language, to understand who's slipping through the cracks, who may in fact be infiltrated in the Iraqi security forces that are supposed to hold these areas. So I'm just skeptical, because we've heard it before in 2004, 2005, 2006, and we're hearing it again in 2007. And I think, we'll see if it'll result in greater stability. I hope so, but I'm skeptical that it will.
But the Americans and the Iraqis are saying that this time, to build on what they believe is considerable local support. They saw, for instance, in Al-Anbar province, how local Sunni tribes there turned against the Al-Qaeda elements in their midst, and they believe that there's quite a strong, sense of support for what they're doing, that they don't want these people committing these acts of violence against them and their legitimate government.
I hope so. I think a lot of people are saying that, but also reported yesterday some Kurdish leaders and Shiite leaders in this government saying that it wasn't a good strategy for the U.S. forces to be supporting some of these Sunni elements in Al-Anbar. They were critical of it, saying, look, the U.S. is actually cooperating with the very terrorists who are blowing up our Shiite mosques. And this is part of the problem. There are so many intra-Iraqi divisions that it's very unclear to me that if you don't settle those divisions, if you're criticized for these operations by members of the Iraqi government, we won't be able to get to stability in Iraq.
All right, easy to criticize. Briefly, what would you recommend then?
Well, at this point, I think it's important for people to ask the question, are more U.S. forces actually stabilizing the country, or are they exacerbating some of these intra-Iraqi tensions and conflicts? And I think a lot of people in America are saying enough's enough. We've done our share. We got rid of Saddam Hussein, and our troops need to come home, and we need to look at ways to peacefully settle Iraq's conflict.